At Colombo, this is the second time I'm going to Colombo for the Ironman, for the Ironman 70.3 over there, and it's a very familiar course and route for me because it's the weather is very similar to Chennai and where I train, and the swim is quite nice with a very calm sea and the roads are flat. The only thing that is a big game changer as far as Colombo goes is that the run is out in the heat. And we start running at around 11 and the sun is right up, there are no clouds, there's no shade along the route. So it's very important to keep your body temperature down if you want to keep going, otherwise you just back up. More importantly for me this time, I was recovering from an injury, so my entire training was upset, and I had actually was in excellent shape in October because I was planning to do an Ironman in Langkawi. And unfortunately 3 weeks before the Ironman in Langkawi, I had a fall from my cycle and I broke my collarbone, which then took me off training for nearly a month and a half to 2 months before I decided to get it operated. So actually I had a surgery for my collarbone 7 weeks before the event. And I had decided in my mind that I would go for the event if my 6th week follow-up X-ray looked good. And the X-ray looked good, so I decided to go for the event with very suboptimal training as far as I am concerned. And I had only done a couple of swims, exactly 2 swims in the pool before I went for the event. And I had gone out for a ride on my bike on the road just twice. I had done a few rides on the trainer indoors. And so I was, to say the least, not well prepared. But in my mind I wanted to get it out of my head that I could do this, and I went with a very open mind with an idea to just finish this as best as I could. But it turned out to be much better than that. I did my personal best, and probably because I didn't put too much pressure on myself, I stayed easy with the swim and the cycle to make sure I would finish the run. And I actually did a much better time than last time. I slashed out at least 15 minutes from my previous best, and that was really nice. Of course, it just goes to show that probably if I can come in form and well trained without an injury to an event, I should be able to do a lot better than that. And that's for the next one, I hope, which will be Ironman Goa probably in October this year. I think the event per se is not so intense if you have trained for it. The training sometimes can be extremely intense, but if your training is really intense, it's a question of train hard and race easy. If you train really hard, you will find that the event is actually not so tough to do. The difference, of course, is that if you had asked me this 5 years ago, I would have thought this was nearly impossible. 3 years ago, I would have thought it was tough, and now I think it's just possible, and that it changes. What used to be a good run for me before is now a warm-up, and essentially the amount of training I do seems a lot easier because I've just over the years gotten used to the volume. So to look at it from at the beginning, when you've never done it before, it can be quite daunting, but right now it's not daunting. It's just a question of getting there in good shape and doing your best. That's it. We set our races, and I tell my coach in advance what are the possible races I'm going to target. Most of my target races are triathlons. I do some running races like half marathons and 10 kilometers, but these are usually kind of tune-ups to my triathlon. I don't really run too hard on my runs as I would come into my triathlon. So when we do that, what we do is we set the first, if you split up the half iron training into probably 5 months to the event, then the first 2 to 3 months would be what we call base building, where we're just building up volume and kind of getting the body into shape for the kind really hard workouts which come about a month to a month and 2 weeks before the event. They start at like 6 weeks out from the event and go on till 2 weeks out from the event, where progressively the training volume goes up. So I would probably be doing 15 to 17 hours of training per week in what we call the peak weeks, which means that there will be at least 2 workouts per day, which would be either a cycle and a run or a cycle and a swim, or and on Saturdays it would be cycle, run and swim. So it can be quite a lot, and it's also the weeks that I get extremely cranky because it's just extremely tiring. But those weeks are the ones that lead the base, because when you train like that on tired legs and tired mind, actually, you're so good at going out and just doing what you have to do that when it comes to the race, it becomes a lot easier because you're fresh, well rested and strong. But yeah, it's about 15 to 17 hours of training, and it is intense in that a lot of the training segments would be interval training where I'm really pushing myself and finishing up extremely tired and somehow managing to finish the day. It's important in those weeks to try and get as much sleep as possible to recover, make sure that your nutrition is on short and making sure you're getting enough protein and getting enough calories to take on that much effort. And also working on certain things like recovery, where you're working on your massages and your foam rolls and etc., so that your muscles you don't get any injury out of it. And if that goes well, then you come out of it shining on the other end and the race looks a lot easier. I am a fairly big believer in strength training in a gym, and I tend to strength train quite heavy during what we call the base months, but then as the volume of training goes up, it's a little difficult to fit in strength training when you're doing 15 to 17 hours of swim, cycle and run. Somehow I hope to get at least 1 or 2 sessions a week of some sort of strength training, even during the peak weeks. I spend a lot of time with weights, with free weights in the gym, so that really helps my core. Of course, I do some other more dynamic exercises like planks and variations of the planks, etc., to get some more core strength. Part of the core strength is developed by making sure that my form is correct in my running and in my cycling. Part of it is developed by weights, free weights. So it's a bit of a contribution from everything. And it really makes a difference, I think, in the finishing stages of a race, because that's when, if your core strength is weak, then you kind of fall apart and you're not able to really hold your form and your pace. Whereas if your core is really strong, it makes a huge difference towards the end of the race more than at the start. And so yeah, I do concentrate on it, but given that in triathlon there's just a lot of other things going on, it's not fit into the schedule so strongly as it should be. Yes, triathlon training per se is extremely lonely. Part of the reason for that is 2 out of the 3 segments, that is the swim and the cycle. The swim is by itself lonely because even if you are swimming with other people, you swim at your own pace. The same with cycling. If you're doing a cycling workouts, you need to work at what is your best pace and what kind of paces you work with, and that is very different from other people. So you can't find somebody who trains at exactly the same pace as you. So generally the swim and the cycling are lonely. However, I make up by making sure that my coach fits me in with my running group for my run training and the run intervals. So the easy runs I can run with anybody, so I get some company for that. And for the tougher runs, we kind of do group workouts. So all of us are doing the same thing, but at different paces. At least we're doing it in the same place, so there is a little bit of a, some kind of a push mentally, at least, to kind of finish it off. And I keep my times very, very clear, and I don't extend my times of work unnecessarily. I am fortunate to work in a place where I don't have to do too many emergencies and calls in the middle of the night. All of that doesn't come in my speciality. However, there are elective cases, and sometimes it does get busy. So yes, the occasional missed workout does definitely figure in the whole overall picture. But I would look at it like this: if you do schedule your workout time from 5 to 7, nobody's going to tell you, no, you're going to start operating at 5 in the morning. You can always operate at 8 in the morning and proceed from there. Of course, some days are really tough if you're doing a workout and then going in for a very long surgery. And when you come back, you don't have any energy left for anything else. But yeah, you have to balance the stress of training versus the stress of work. And some days it's alright to just not go and stay back and not train and sleep, because your body will recover better and you can train